Hi folks, welcome back and welcome to the latest installment of the left's favorite coercive narrative genre, progressive political theater, where the plot is fake, the outrage is very real, and the fact checkers, well, they're all out to lunch. This week's performance, a dramatic tale of ICE agents abducting a poor mother of three from a jack-in-the-box and dragging her to a secret torture chamber. Spoiler alert, none of it happened. But that didn't stop California Democrats and the media from jumping in head first with press conferences, fundraisers, yes, GoFundMe, and crocodile tears on camera. Now that the stories collapsed like a Berkeley sociology major in the real world, well, we got crickets. Total radio silence. The same people who weaponize this hoax to smear federal agents and rile up mobs are pretending this never happened. This isn't just lazy, folks. It's straight up malicious and anti-American. And it's exactly how the modern left operates. Manufacture the panic, reap the headlines, and ghost the consequences. Anyway, here's how this story started.
After a mother of three is taken at gunpoint by two men in unmarked cars.
Gunpoint?
Family members and some people in the community are demanding answers. Julie Calderon has lived in LA for 20 years. They want to know where she's being held now and who is holding her. Carlos Salcedo live in the KTLA News Center with more on what we know about the case tonight. Carlos?
Good evening. Well, imagine being taken by masked men appearing as federal officers. Then you're transported to the border, pressured to sign self-deportation paperwork. Well, that's what happened to a South LA mom last week.
Did it?
She refused to sign, and tonight family members say they don't know where she's being held.
Free Julie now! Immigration rights activists and family of Julie Calderon rallied in South LA Monday after they say the mom of three was abducted by masked men in unmarked vehicles.
Calderon
told family members that she was going to her janitorial job last Wednesday night when she was followed by two vehicles along Alameda. Feeling unsafe, she pulled into this parking lot.
She stepped into the parking lot. Folks got off of those trucks, armed, masked, and they took her.
She was placed in custody for not being a U.S. citizen, but instead of taking her to a detention center in L.A., she was driven to San Isidro.
She was taken straight from here, the border, and pressured to sign self-deportation paperwork.
And when she refused and asked to speak with a lawyer, Calderon was transported with others to a warehouse close to where she was initially taken from. She was allowed to make only 2 phone calls before going silent.
According to Julie, one of the bounty hunters allowed her access to a phone. We don't know if that was his personal phone. We don't know if that was a phone that belonged to the facility.
Ever heard of caller ID?
Calderon has been in LA for more than 20 years, raised 3 children, 2 with special needs, while volunteering with immigrant rights groups. As of now, her whereabouts are unknown.
So what has happened is that we have a lot of people for whom we don't have a location. So everything about what's happening right now is absolutely different than what we've ever experienced in the past.
Is she in ICE custody? Is she in CBP custody? Or is she being held somewhere else?
Calderon has several underlying health issues and needs her medication, so her family, of course, is desperate to find her. We reached out to the Department of Homeland Security regarding this case, but have not heard back.
This whole thing sounds so unbelievably fake, and it's so much worse now that we know it was fake. A woman supposedly abducted at gunpoint by ICE in broad daylight from a jack-in-the-box, dragged to a warehouse, denied food, water, and legal counsel, and not one shred of it was true. And yet this hoax didn't just spread, it exploded because it fit the script the modern left has been desperate to sell, that federal law enforcement is fascist, that illegal immigrants are under constant siege, and that the only heroes left are immigrant rights groups who, surprise, surprise, just happen to be ready with press conferences, protest signs, and GoFundMe links, all ready to fire away the woman behind it. Hey, Julie Calderon wasn't some random bystander, by the way. She volunteered with these same activist groups who spent years turning emotional manipulation into political currency. So this wasn't just misinformation. It was a coordinated narrative assault on truth. And when it collapsed, well, the activists vanished. The media moved on and ignored it. And the politicians who amplified it, well, They couldn't be bothered to correct the record because in their worldview, truth is secondary to utility. This isn't just rot, folks. This is where institutions meant to inform and protect us now operate as ideological vending machines. Press the right emotional buttons and they'll spit out whatever story helps them cling to power. Anyway, since these folks will obviously never hold themselves accountable, let's just expose them one at a time right now.
Coming and kidnapping and disappearing people on the streets of the United States.
We have ICE federal agents pulling up, terrorizing our communities, hopping out of unmarked vans, stealing and, yes, kidnapping people.
Oh, the Democrat Party is cancer. It's poison. Rotting not just policy, but perception, truth, and trust. When elected officials like Pramila Jayapal and Maxwell Frost get on camera and accuse ICE of kidnapping people off the streets, they're not just misinforming the country, they're actively inciting panic to score political points. This isn't rhetoric rooted in reality. It's a deliberate campaign to delegitimize federal law enforcement and cast federal authority as some kind of rogue terrorist regime. And it works because the left has spent years eroding the public's ability to distinguish between truth and narrative. In schools, in newsrooms, and on social media, they've conditioned people to respond emotionally instead of thinking critically. That's how an obvious hoax, a woman inventing her own abduction with the help of activist networks, can become national news without a single fact check. The goal isn't justice, it's power. And to get it, they're willing to burn down every institution in this country, from journalism to immigration law, all while leaving a population that's angrier, dumber, and easier to control. Now, DHS jumped on this hoax relatively quickly and responded to it at 7:52 a.m. Los Angeles time on July 1st. And trust me, the time is actually very relevant and important here. DHS said KTLA fell for a hoax. This woman was never arrested or kidnapped by ICE. If the media would have bothered to ask, ICE does not employ bounty hunters to make arrests. This bizarre tale about being picked up by bounty hunters, taken to an unmarked warehouse without access to food, water, or an attorney were clearly fabricated. Lazy reporting like this is why trust in the media is at an all-time low. This type of fear-mongering demonizes our law enforcement, who are now facing a nearly 700% increase in assaults against them. Now, folks, that's not a fringe tweet. That's an official account spelling out what everyone with a brain already suspected. But by the time DHS issued that correction, the lie had already gone viral. Politicians were jumping in to amplify it, including our retarded mayor, Karen Bass, who not only tweeted about the fake kidnapping, but actually shared the KTLA article in question 2.5 hours after DHS had already debunked the entire thing. She said, "She's a mother from LA, taken out of her car on her way to work and then held in a warehouse as officers hoped she would self-deport. No hearing, just fear. This doesn't make anyone safe." Folks, this is what our so-called leadership is pushing after the hoax was exposed. Now, to be clear, Karen isn't just mistaken here. She's willfully spreading this information because it fuels this Democrat narrative of the kidnappings. Forget evidence, forget due process. If it stirs fear and resentment toward federal authority, Democrats are all in, baby. It's emotional propaganda wrapped in a sob story amplified by people who should absolutely know better. And the fact that the mayor of Los Angeles, the second largest city in the country, is parroting activist fantasy after it was proven false tells you everything where the Democrat priorities lie. Not in truth, not in law enforcement, but in political theater at the expense of national credibility. And needless to say, it didn't take long for this hoax to be exposed as another juicy Smollett.
Migrant in California is charged with staging a fake kidnapping and blaming federal agents or people working with them. Correspondent Matt Finn reporting live on this from LA.
Hi, Martha. This woman is here illegally, a Mexican national. She goes by Julie Calderon, and the feds say she's being charged with lying to police and conspiracy for this elaborate hoax that they believe was meant to incite even more tension and also possibly make some money. Federal investigators say a key piece of evidence, photos. Calderon and her co-conspirators had pictures pictures ready, staged to make it look like she was in custody with a dirty face, even removing her shoelaces. But the feds say there's at least one glaring error, because she would have been asked to take off the necklace in an official federal photo. The U.S. government says surveillance video helped them crack the case. The feds say this woman lied about being kidnapped by federal agents at a Jack in the Box here in L.A., taken to San Ysidro to the south, and asked to self-deport, but she refused, so she was held in a warehouse. But the feds say they caught her roaming free in the Bakersfield area, hundreds of miles north. This scheme went to extremes: a filed police report, a GoFundMe, even a press conference announcing her disappearance. The Department of Justice says Calderon was indeed using her iPhone during her alleged disappearance, which helped them locate her. She faces a maximum of 10 years if convicted. The U.S. attorney here in LA says, quote, dangerous rhetoric that ICE agents are kidnapping illegal migrants is being recklessly peddled by politicians and echoed in the media to inflame the public and discredit our courageous federal agents. We do have calls into that attorney who you saw in that video who is representing this woman. And also there are also co-conspirators listed throughout this federal complaint. So we expect there may be more people charged here.
These people are so comfortable in manipulating others to serve their political ends that they will blatantly and transparently collude to stage elaborate hoaxes, file fake police reports, hold dramatic press conferences, scrub up a story for GoFundMe, and pose for cameras with trembling voices, just to smear ICE and paint the U.S. as some dystopian fascist state. And yet, when these lies collapse, as it did here with Julie Calderon, a Mexican national illegally in America who was found roaming around in Bakersfield while supposedly being held hostage in a federal black site, there's no remorse, no accountability, no lesson learned, because this isn't just about one woman lying. This is about an entire ideological machine, from activist lawyers to media outlets to elected Democrats, all who incentivize this form of deception, who reward this form of victimhood, and treats truth like a nuisance to be ignored. The reason this hoax worked, even though temporarily, is because the groundwork has been laid for years. Demonize law enforcement, paint all immigration policy as cruelty, and prime the public to believe every sensational claim with zero evidence. And when truth becomes subjective and institutions no longer punish lying, especially if it serves the right narrative, then hoaxes like this aren't aberrations, they're inevitable.
So, Laura, this was all over the local media here, this whole hoax. They had a press conference, and the media, extremely reckless here locally, just repeating this stuff without doing any vetting or checking it, saying she was abducted and kidnapped from a Jack in the Box. We knew she was not in our custody, and our agents were concerned that she was actually kidnapped. So we launched an investigation to make sure she was safe. They worked over the holiday, over the 4th of July break. I got calls about this. And we got surveillance video, we investigated, we found out the whole thing was a hoax. She wasn't anywhere near the border, she was up in Bakersfield, and the whole thing was an elaborate conspiracy.
Oh, the courage to be this boldly self-involved and dumb. To think you can fake a federal kidnapping, stage a press conference, fabricate a sob story, and not only get away with it, but be celebrated for it. That's the level of Democrat delusion that we're dealing with here, folks. What Bill Asaley and his team revealed here isn't just the hoax. It's a window into this cultural sickness that has been thrust upon us by the Democrat Party. And the knee-jerk instinct from media outlets like KTLA, it wasn't to verify, it was to believe, amplify, and emotionally exploit the narrative. Local media ran with it uncritically. Left-wing activists leapt into action, and public officials nearly legitimized it. I mean, actually, they fully did. Our mayor fully tweeted that out hours after DHS informed the public that it was a hoax. Our mayor was getting behind it to further the narrative, all because it confirmed their worldview. ICE is evil, immigrants are helpless, and America is just one big hate crime waiting to happen. But the real irony, it was ICE itself that launched the investigation to make sure this woman was safe. That's the part they will never give credit where credit is due, because in this upside down political order, in this authoritarian Democrat state, the narrative matters more to our leaders than the facts. And the truth is only useful when it can be weaponized against Republicans. What this hoax proves is that the left's grip on institutional trust is weakening, not because they're being challenged, but because they've burned through their credibility with reckless, ideologically driven frauds like this.
Case involving a South LA activist, and they tell KTLA 5 that Juliana or Julie Calderon has been located, but just where is still a mystery tonight.
Where?
Supporters say that she was taken from the parking lot of a fast food restaurant in South LA on June 25th and was being held at a facility near the border, urging herself to self-deport, according to them. Now, an attorney from the Immigrant Defenders Law Center who is working this case says the Mexican consulate has learned that Calderon is in federal custody, and they are working to speak with her. DHS, though, has not responded to KTLA 5's numerous follow-up requests for a comment, and federal agents had labeled her disappearance as a hoax. If she is in federal custody, it remains unclear exactly why or what legal consequences she may be facing.
The way KTLA, the outlet that perpetuated this hoax, is now obscuring the details of the truth and refusing to correct the record is a perfect case study in how corporate media sustains this information by omission. KTLA didn't just report a lie. They gave it legs, a microphone, and emotional packing. And now, even after DHS and the DOJ have confirmed the entire story was fabricated, they're still treating the hoax as if it's an unsolved mystery. This isn't journalism, it's narrative maintenance. For the Democrats, they're too invested in the emotional storyline, too cowardly to admit they got played, and too ideologically compromised to even acknowledge the facts. But this is bigger than one station or one fake kidnapping. It's about an institutional culture that prioritizes feelings over truth, activism over accountability, and political utility over public trust. When lies are exposed and the media refuses to retract them and correct the record, it doesn't just erode their credibility, it cements the public's growing suspicion that these people aren't reporters. They're propagandists with fancy press passes. So the question isn't just, how did this happen? It's why do they keep getting away with it? Why are hoaxes, lies, and emotional manipulation now the default currency of Democrat political discourse? And more importantly, why are so many people still willing to believe any of this garbage? Maybe it's easier to live in a curated illusion than to confront the uncomfortable truth that the institutions we were raised to trust. Maybe it's just easier to live in a curated illusion than to confront the uncomfortable truth that the institutions we were raised to trust, our media, our politicians, even some of our legal advocates, are often driven more by the Democrat agenda than integrity. But at some point, we all have to choose. Do we keep playing along, nodding politely while the system burns down in plain sight? Or do we start asking better questions, demanding actual answers, and rejecting the narratives designed to control us? Because this isn't just a hoax, folks. It's about whether truth still matters in a country that seems increasingly allergic to it, primarily as a result of the neo-Marxist agenda of creating a perpetual state of crisis. You tell me what you think in the comments down below. Hope you have a terrific day. Peace.